Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to continue looking at our parabolas. Remember, those are the equations, those are the graphs, those U-shaped graphs, up or down, and we're going to look at what happens, why they go up or down. And remember that we talked yesterday about the fact that they can move to the right, they can move to the left, they can move up, and they can move down depending on what's with them, what numbers are with them. Okay, so again, the parent graph is y equals x squared. And that just always means the vertex, that turning point. Remember the turning point is called the vertex. Okay, that vertex is always at the origin if it's in this simplest form of the parent graph. Right? So we always know what the graph is going to look like and what it's going to be doing. We just don't know where it's doing it until we look at a few pieces. So just to recap, if you have y equals x squared plus 2, that means that it's going to give you a vertical translation. In other words, positive 2 means it's going to go up 2 from the origin. Okay? If you have y equals x squared minus 4, that means down 4 from the origin. Okay? Then we talked about when we have y equals x plus 1 quantity squared. So it's in that parentheses, in the bracket, sorry. And that means that it's going to be a shift from side to side. So that means take your x plus 1, set it equal to 0, and solve. It gives you x equals negative 1. So that means it's going to go to the left 1 from the origin. Okay, just going to move the whole thing over. So if you have y equals x minus 2 squared, again, x minus 2 equals 0, add 2 this time, you get x equals positive 2, so that means it's going to go to the right 2 from the origin. And today we're going to look at what happens when we put all of this together, and then we're going to look at something called a reflection. So let's see what happens when we start putting it all together and how those graphs change. All right, so here we go. We've got, just to make this bigger, there we go. So we have combinations of the two. So you see we in this case we still have the parentheses raised to the second power, but then we have some number added to it. And that tells us we've got both. We're going to be moving the vertex over and up or down. Okay, so to the right or left and up or down. Okay. So if you look at this particular one, plus 2 means that it's going to go up 2, right? X minus 1, set it equal to 0, tells you x is moving 1 to the right, right? So you see that the vertex, or the turning point, has moved to the right 1 and then up 2. Okay? And so you're always able to tell where the vertex is going to be, and so we always know which point that is. So 1, 2 means that that point is the vertex. And then the other points, if we wanted other points to be able to build the graph, we would just pick points either side of that vertex to complete the chart. Now again, they gave you numbers there to use, so you just completed the ones that they gave you. Still, if it's 3, 6, right, then 2, 3, then you're going to start getting numbers on the other side But notice they start repeating. Those y values start repeating because one side of a parabola is exactly symmetrical to the other. All right? So let's look at a couple of these and see if we can graph them by first plotting the vertex, okay, and then finding a few more points. Okay. All right. So go to the next page. Here we go. Let's just look at something like number 5. It's very convenient because it's there. So looking at number 5, we know that it's going to go up 5. That's x plus 1. So when you set it equal to 0 and solve it, you end up with x equals negative 1. So that means negative 1 means it's going to go left 1. And positive 5 means it's going to go up 5. And now we'll know what's happening. So to the left 1 and up 5 puts our vertex right there. Okay? And then from that point, you can just choose a few points on either side. And 2 points either side is plenty. So why don't we just choose negative 2 and positive 2? It'll just be a sketch. It won't give us exactly what's happening, but it'll tell us what we can do. All right? Actually, we could choose negative 2 and 0, but make it even easier. Anytime you can use 0, you know that's a great point to use. So y equals negative 2 plus 1 squared plus 5 gives you negative 1 squared plus 5, which is 1 plus 5 is 6. So if it's negative 2, we get a y value of 6. Now we'll do the same thing with 0. Y equals 0 plus 1 squared plus 5 gives you 1 squared plus 5. So 1 plus 5 equals positive 6. And we expected that because of what you know. If this is the vertex, then everything else that you do from the others is going to be symmetrical. Okay? So 0, 6, negative 2, 6. Okay? So that means it's going to go up like that. And again, that's enough to do a rough sketch. It might not be exactly as wide as it really is or as narrow as it really is, but we don't really care. All right? So if you remember the symmetry, you only have to really have one other point. Okay? All right, let's look at another one so that I can show you that. Okay? Let's look at number 3 here. Okay? All right, so number 3. First, well, let's find that vertex. All right, so I know that it's negative 1, so that's down 1. Okay, so negative 1. And then x plus 2 equals 0 gives me x equals negative 2. Right? So to the left 2. Left 2, down 1. So what you're really getting is another coordinate on the graph. Now, we need at least one more point in order to graph this parabola. So let's just choose 0. Just because it's super easy to use. Now that I put a dot on the origin, that doesn't mean that's where it's going to be. I'm just saying we're going to use 0. So 0 plus 2 squared minus 1 gives us 2 squared minus 1. 4 minus 1 is 3. So if it's 0, x is 0, then y is 3. So 0, 3 is right there. Now, that's 2 places over, 1, 2, 3, 4 places up, right? So that's doing the same thing on the other side. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we don't even have to do the math to know that this point on this side of the vertex is going to be the same number of places. It's just reversed. And there we go. You can draw your parabola. Again, it's probably not perfect, but it's good enough. Okay? So really, all you need to graph is the vertex and one point. So the more familiar you get with them, the easier it becomes. Okay. Now let's see what happens when you get what's called a reflection. Now think about a reflection. You're talking about a reflection. It's like a mirror image. So what happens is the graph is reflected across the x-axis. So, and if you look at, it's very easy to recognize, you get a reflection if the x squared is negative. Then the parabola opens down instead of up. So instead of this U-shaped, we're getting this shape here. Everything else stays the same. The horizontal shift, the vertical shift, all of that stuff is going to stay the same. The only thing that's going to change is that instead of opening up, it's going to open down. So let's look at a couple of those so that you can see some. Okay. Let's just go to the homework. Don't make it complicated, guys. All right. So here. Now, it doesn't say negative squared, but notice that it's the parentheses has a negative in front of it. That means that your x squared inside is going to be negative. So that is just the same as saying negative x squared. Okay? So since it's negative, I know it's going to open down. So it's a reflection. Okay? The negative 2 tells me that it's going to move. Sorry about that. So the negative 2 is going to tell me it's going to go down 2. So that means my y value is negative 2 for the vertex. And then x plus 1 equals 0. Subtract 1 from both sides gives me x equals negative 1. So that's where my vertex is going to be. Left 1, down 1. So left 1, down 1. I'm sorry, left 1, down 2. It's going to be right there. Then I need one more point. Again, I always like to use 0 because it just makes life easier. It's easier to work with 0 than any other number. So y equals negative 0 plus 1 squared minus 2. Be careful with that negative. Keep it. 0 plus 1 is 1 squared minus 2. 1 squared is 1, but that negative is going to turn it into a negative 1 minus 2 gives you negative 3. So the point is 0, comma, negative 3. So 0, negative 3 is right there. If there's a point on that side of the vertex there, then that means there's a point on that side of the vertex there. Again, we knew it was negative, so that means we know that it's going to be opening down. So there's our parabola. Okay? Now, here, doesn't matter that the 4 is in front. It's still our shift. So it's still going to go up 4. And that gives us a positive 2. That negative tells us it's going to be opening down. Okay? So we'll just graph it here on this one, even though it's meant to be graphed down there. So 2, 4 means it's going to go to the right 2, up 4. So there's the point of our vertex. Again, I like to choose 0 as my test point. Yeah, that's what we were laughing at the last meeting. So just plug that in. Y equals 4 minus 0 minus 2 squared. 4 minus negative 2 squared. 4 minus negative 2 squared is 4 equals 0. So that means it's giving us the point 0, comma 0, which is the origin. Well, if it's there, that's over 2 and down 3. So over 2 and down 3 is going to give us a point right there. And there you go. Don't make that pointed like I just did. It curves. Okay? All right. And that should be enough to get you started with those. So we're going to complete the parabolas today, and then, so do your homework up to page, let's see, what's that finish on? More of them there. Draw the graph for the following equations.
We start to watch the dates on. He said, I don't have to worry anymore for a while because everything's just been wiped out. It's just gone.
Okay, let's just stop on page 38. So your homework,
Anyway,
page 33 through 38. Now some of that won't have work on it. Some of it's just the descriptions, but that's where we started on page 33. So any homework between those two sets of those two numbers, yeah, I expect you to do. All right, thanks so much. Bye, kids.